Hello, Mixtresses and Mixters. This is Mixtress Ray. You're watching Mixtress video, and we are your girl. That's me. Never referred to myself that way before. That was weird. Has been categorizing her decks again. This was due to a conversation I was having with Grace where she had mentioned that it was helpful for her to take a look at her collection of tarot and oracle decks and decide what categories most of her decks fit into, what categories are important to her, what doesn't seem to fit, and just kind of like, and I do this periodically where I will just find a whole new way to categorize my tarot decks and oracle decks. And so I did that. Okay, so this was different for me simply because most of the time when I'm doing this whole categorizing my collection thing, usually the way that I do it is I will come up with some harebrained scheme that I think makes sense as a category, and then I will try to see how my collection fits into it. This time, I took a look at my collection and then decided what the categories were. I let my collection inform the categories, if that makes sense, instead of the other way around. Oh man, I'm just gonna be fighting with this little, you know what I should do is glue this little chickie to like a bit of rock or something. So then she'll have a platform to stand on. Okay, I will do that. Because I do like to bring her out every spring. Okay, so in doing this project, I created 5 categories that my entire deck collection fits into. The first category is basic. So this is the category that I would describe as, so any deck that I have that has a neutral tone, a neutral presentation that has like no filter on it, is just usable for everyone. And yeah, it's neutral. It's aesthetically neutral to me. I mean, these are all my own categories. What I find aesthetically neutral is not necessarily going to be the same for you. But for me, it would be an effortless, kind of minimalistic art style. And it's a neutral tone. So I decided, at first I was going to haul out my entire fucking tarot and oracle deck collection so I can show you absolutely every deck that fits in each category. And I know that that would be a really long and enjoyable video. However, I don't have the energy for that nonsense right now. So I'm not doing it. I decided what I am going to do is for each category, I am going to show you, I made these lists on little bits of scrap paper from work yesterday. So I am going to show you the list of all of my decks that fit in each category, but the actual decks I'm going to show you, I'm going to pick you the best example of what I mean by each category, and then I'm going to show you my favorite that fits in each category. So, basic. Here's the list of all of my basic tarot and oracle decks. So Rider-Waite-Smith, Vintage Wisdom Oracle, Pulp Girls Tarot, Modern Nirvana Oracle. Forgive this is my standing at the front desk at the library, just scribbling things down on a piece of scrap paper version of my handwriting. So you might not be able to read it. But Modern Nirvana Oracle. Again, things that I think have a neutral tone. Halloween Tarot, Modern Witch Tarot, Strangeling Oracle by Julie, our very own Julie, and Moon Baby Tarot all fit in the basic category. So the one that I would consider to be the best example of what I mean by a basic oracle or tarot oracle deck is Rider-Waite-Smith. So I keep it in this beautiful hand-carved box, and you don't need me to get that out. You know what it looks like. And then my favorite example, you may guess now if you would like by looking at the list. Put it in the comments. Or choose your favorite. But my favorite example, sorry, I was going to get it out while it was on screen, but you might be able to tell by just looking at this bag. It's Halloween tarot. It isn't basic in its... I mean, some people would not say that this is basic because it's, you know, a particular art style. A lot of people only get this deck out during Halloween time. I am not one of those people. I get this deck out all the time. This is the 10-sized version I keep in my purse, and it comes out not daily, but it comes out all the time because, you know, if I need a quick reading while I'm on a lunch break or something at work, that's the deck I have access to. So I would consider this, the voice of this deck, it is a neutral tone. It is an RWS based deck. I consider this to be a neutral tone. I consider the aesthetics of Halloween to be a comfortable space for me. I can just exist in this world effortlessly. You know, these are effortless decks. The basic category is effortless, neutral tone decks that work for everyone. Decks that never, you know, because I do have some decks in my tarot and oracle collection that, like, sometimes they don't want to talk to me. Nothing in the basic category would refuse to talk to me at any time. They're always going to be open. They're always talkative. So that is category number 1 of my decks. Category number 2. These are in kind of no particular order. I'm sort of going from, yeah, I mean, I wanted to start with basic. And then next, it's sort of another level of basic for me personally, and that is Gothic aesthetic tarot decks. I'm actually surprised that only 10 were in this category for me. So this is Dark Angels Tarot, Gothmancy Tarot, Le Vampire Oracle, Tarot of Vampires, Ludi Lesket, Moon Power, Embroidered Graveyard Oracle, Dark Mirror Oracle, Dark Wood Tarot, and Fairy Enchantments. I mean, I probably do have decks throughout all of my categories that might have a slightly gothic tone to them. This is yet another category that, like, I don't have a limit with gothic decks. Like, any tarot or oracle deck that has beautiful gothic imagery, I'm slightly more likely to be able to vibe with a gothic aesthetic than any other type of aesthetic. So I would say my best example of a gothic deck that I have in my collection is Dark Angels. Here we have the Queen of Wands, Hanged One, the Knight of Swords, the Emperor, the Eight of Pentacles. I don't know why I'm saying them out loud as I flip, but this one is what I would consider, this is my era of Gothic aesthetic. This is like late 90s, early 2000s as far as the style of dress and the sort of like overexposed, like super saturated colors, very high contrast, hyper, you know, overexposed. It reminds me of music videos from the 90s and early 2000s. So this is the best example of a Gothic aesthetic. I can't believe I ever thought, for a while I had this in a collage box because I thought I was going to like get rid of it or just stop using it as a tarot deck. But I can't believe that because it's one of my favorites now. I'm so glad I rescued it from its purgatory. So this is what I would consider to be the best example of Gothic aesthetic, a category of my deck collection. But my favorite, I think, is still, I just got it back out this week and I'm really enjoying using it again, Darkwood Tarot. I know a lot of people hate this deck, I think, but I don't hate it. I really like it. I like Abigail Larson's art style. I like all the Gothic imagery, the beautiful women with the long hair. Like, I am here for this world, truly. And it's kind of it's the most like storybook fantasy fairy tale deck that I have. I'm not usually into that thing and that type of thing in general, but this one has a bit of a witchy vibe and a bit of a vampire vibe at the same time, but it is kind of in that fantasy sort of Disney scenario. This is the most Disney card of the deck, but the closest I want to be to Disney is Disney adjacent, something like this. This is as close as I want to be to Disney, despite the fact that I do have Nightmare Before Christmas Tarot, but which is technically a Disney thing, right? But I guess that's technically the closest I want to be to Disney, but still. Darkwood Tarot in the Gothic category. Next category is what I'm calling it. This is goddess decks, but I am also including like basically anything spiritual I would put in the goddess category for me personally. So we have Kali Oracle, Goddess Oracle, Dark Goddess Oracle, which is one that I have ordered but I don't actually have it yet, Isis Oracle, Marigold Tarot, because I consider it to be the voice of Kali. I am consulting Kali when I consult Marigold Tarot, so that is why it is in this category. Gods and Goddesses Oracle, of course, Goddesses Knowledge cards. Aminti Oracle, because that is the 42 principles of Ma'at. Yogic Path Oracle, which is more of a spiritual path. And Tantric Dakini Oracle as well. Not only because of the name, Tantric Dakini, which is, spiritual, but it is kind of a spiritual vibes deck, I would say. So that's my goddess category. So the best example from my goddess category is quite literally the Goddess Oracle, because it is goddesses. And, sorry, I'm having to straddle the tripod here. And this one's a very well-rounded, lots of different pantheons represented in this deck. And it came out in the late 90s. For being from that time period, it's pretty diverse and well-rounded. It's my favorite goddess oracle, and I have had quite a few because I just like the goddess vibes. Which is funny because I'm not that into mythology in general. Like, I don't know, the plots of mythology I'm not into, but I'm into the, like, what is this goddess and what does she represent, And my favorite in this category for me is Marigold Tarot. Because, again, I do conceptualize this deck as being, like, kind of direct communication with the goddess Kali. hang this right back on my wall. Okay, next category for me, my fourth category that all of my tarot and oracle decks fit into. This is my actually my last two categories I'm going to show you are my biggest categories, except this category is a bit more specific than my last category, and that is flora and fauna. So pretty self-explanatory, like any nature-based decks, animals, landscapes, plants, any nature deck is going to fit in the flora and fauna category. I have no limits in my mind to how many of these decks I can have because I love so many of them. In fact, I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever gotten rid of an animal deck. I've always, it's like I'm not that picky about animal decks. That's not true, because if I don't like the art style, I won't buy it. But if I like the art style and I buy it, then I'm good. Like, when it comes to nature decks, I am much more accepting of them, I think. So, okay, in my nature decks category, flora and fauna category, Animal Spirit Oracle, Animal Wise Tarot, Animal Apothecary, Wild Unknown, my own Magic and Medicine of Plants deck, Enchanted Blossoms Oracle, Feathered Omens Oracle, Witches Familiars Oracle, which I just got like last week, Crow Tarot, Urban Crow Oracle, which is one that I have on order right now, but I don't have it in my possession yet. I was able to snag a used copy on eBay that was already edged in black, which is exactly what I would have done to it. I was able to snag a copy for $12. That's amazing. Woodland Wardens Oracle, Magical Forest Tarot, Fairies Oracle. I would consider, even though it's a supernatural creature, it's a fantasy creature, I would consider it in the flora and fauna category because it's a very nature-based deck. Power of the Elements Oracle, which is another one that I just ordered, but I don't have it yet. I have 3 Oracle decks right now that I don't have yet, but I am already considering them a part of my collection. And Oak, Ash, and Thorn Tarot are all in the flora and fauna category. So the best example of a flora and fauna deck is Woodland Wardens, because it literally is. Like, this could... I mean, that would be a great name for this deck, actually. Just flora and fauna, because it is. It literally is. It's both. Every card has a plant and an animal on it. And it's great. It was really hard for me with this category to pick a favorite. Ooh. Okay, Woodland Wardens. It's like, I'm not ready for you to put me away yet. All right, last one I pick up off the floor is going to be my reading for the day. Beaver and Birch, Home. That's fitting because the only time I've left the house today is to go on a little walk around my neighborhood, and I chose to not even leave the 3-block radius from my house. I just did laps. Leaving home was not something I wanted to do on this day. So it was really hard for me to pick a favorite in this category. Let me just zoom out for a second, make sure I didn't miss any of those cards. Yep, they're all back in the box. Okay. So I went with the one that I have used the most, which is Wild Unknown Tarot. I have had this one since April 2019. I even wrote it on the little guide sheet thing when I got it. But I've had a copy of it. This was my second copy because I had like the third edition mass market. But when I got this one, I got rid of that one because I didn't like the guidebook anyway. So I've had a copy of this deck for 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Coming up on 4.5 years. And I sort of learned tarot with this deck to some degree. Like I was learning Rider-Waite-Smith and this deck at the same time. So in some cases, for a long time, whenever I would think of, like this is a good example, whenever I would think of the Three of Pentacles, this is the image that would pop up of my head. I love this deck. I still love it. And I use it. This is primarily the only deck that I use outside. So like if I'm sitting on my porch, this is the deck I take with me most of the time. And I love the court cards. I love the trees. I love the lammy. Yeah, I love this deck. I don't love this card though. I don't like the idea of an Eight of Cups having a bunch of broken cups. That's not what, you're not leaving behind a bunch of broken cups. So anyway, but I do think this is still one, it's one that I just like, it could have also been in the basic category, to be honest, because I do see this like as a neutral voice. This deck has a neutral voice for me. For sure, because it is the voice of nature that comes through on this deck. It's the voice of the wild unknown. Okay, my last category, it is a little bit a miscellaneous everything else kind of category, a little bit, but it does have a specific. It is an everything else, but it's an everything else with a bit of a purpose. So I'm explaining that terribly. So this one has just as many decks in, this category has just as many decks in it as the flora and fauna category. And it is setting. There's one written on the side there. So this is like any, it could be like literally that particular deck represents a particular time and place, or it could be a fantasy world. Any like cohesive world that it feels like you're visiting, and actually it feels like you're visiting a specific space when you go to this particular tarot deck. There are a few other decks in other categories that could have fit in this one too, but yeah, like for example, Ludi Lescott, I did put it in the Gothic category, but could have just as easily been in the setting category. But yeah, basically it's a space that I visit. So, Nefertari's Tarot, because it's the Egyptian mythology space in my collection. Crow's Magic Tarot, Tarot of the Cat People. Neon Moon Tarot, because it's a comic book dystopia landscape, and it is an actually well thought out world. Black Tarot, because that is just sort of a muddy dream space, you know, it's not in this world. Santa Muerte Tarot, it's a specific space, you know. Cosmic Tribe Tarot, that one is kind of, it's a community of people from 1998. You know, it's very specific. It's like, yeah. Techno-pagan club kids from 1998. Very specific. Morgan's Tarot. That one probably could have been in the basic category. I'm not sure if it should be here. Yeah. Telesma Tarot. This one was like, this is a deck that kind of defied category. I didn't know where to put it. Most of the time, any decks that like don't fit into these categories for me would be kind of it would be kind of a deal breaker. It would be sort of a, like, going forward, the idea with having these categories for me is that whenever I'm thinking about buying a tarot or oracle deck, I have to decide, okay, but which one of my categories does it fit into? Oh, it doesn't fit into any of them? I mean, it's not going to be like an automatic deal breaker if a deck doesn't fit into any of those categories, but it's going to make me question it a little bit harder. Question if I really want it a little bit harder. So it's weird that Telesma doesn't really, because I really do love that deck, but aesthetically it's not gothic. It's definitely not basic. It's not goddess. It's not flora and fauna, and it's not a specific time or place either. So that one actually just completely defies category, but it's on this list anyway because it's sort of the everything else list. Desert Illuminations. I wrote Snake Flame on here because I have my very own knockoff copy that I made myself for Make Playing Cards, but it's Serpent Fire Tarot. Pulp Tarot, Mystic Mondays, Buffy, and Nightmare Before Christmas. So any pop culture deck fits in this category because it is a specific, especially if it's based on a fictional world. Like Gothmancy is a pop culture deck, but I put it in the gothic category because it's gothic and new wave music artists in that deck. It's real people. Whereas with Buffy and Nightmare Before Christmas, that's a fictional world. So, anytime we're visiting a specific world or a specific time or place, that is setting. So the best example of that, for me, is Desert Illuminations Tarot, because this one is literally like the person that made this deck, Lindsay Williams. And it's about to come out on mass market, guys, so it's probably sold out now everywhere, but it will be affordable soon. So don't go crazy buying it online. So if I make you want this deck, don't go crazy buying it online. This person lives in New Mexico, and they've made a deck that has aliens. And it, you know, it has that vibe. You know, all these people are probably wearing turquoise jewelry. There's the Roswell. I mean, just perfection. This one is, and I've been to New Mexico. It has the right vibes for me. Has the right colors. Yeah. So this one is the best literal example of a setting deck for me. But my favorite deck that fits in this category is Tarot of the Cat People. This one is, I mean, you don't have to know like the like, so there is like a whole fictional world that a whole fictional fantasy sci-fi world that the characters from this deck fit into. Which you can get an idea of that in the Little White Book if you do have this deck. But you don't need to know that to enjoy this deck. But it does feel, even without like reading about that, you can tell that this is a specific world. You know, this is a world where people revere cats. And it's a specific society. It is very sci-fi. And it is definitely a place that I would feel very comfortable visiting. Very comfortable. I love the pages in this deck especially. And yeah, it's a very sweet place. And I get just as much from the expressions on the cats as I do from the expressions on the people in this deck. Look at that little guy. He's just like looking around like, how much longer do we gotta stay here? Anyway, it's so good. I love it so much. So that is Tarot of the Cat People, which fits in my setting category. So that's all of my categories. Does that make any sense? I mean, it was helpful for me, actually, to like sit back and stare at my shelf and go, okay, what is this? Okay, this is Gothic aesthetic, obviously. Okay, what is this? Okay, this is definitely, like, it just very easily, these categories came up for me. Like, I love goddess decks, I love flora and fauna, I love Gothic aesthetic, and then I like places and thought out worlds. Like, it's almost like my setting category is like my fiction book category, you know? Like, this is a world that I want to visit. And I mean, and that kind of like goes back to like, when was this? Was this last year or before? I don't know. Sometime in the last year or two, I came on here and I said that I was categorizing all my decks as either me or a place I want to be. And so that was kind of like, either it was an aesthetic that I could relate to personally, or it was a space that I wanted to visit. And I was putting all my decks in those two categories, but I kind of need a little bit more categories than that, actually, now. Because, yeah. So, and then looking at this, I can say, okay, well, I definitely have plenty of settings. But, I mean, there's not really a limit with, like, spaces that I want to visit. As long as I think it's a well thought out tarot or oracle landscape that I want to visit, then, like, many different art styles can fit in that category. Many different fictional world building spaces. I don't have the right words, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. Lots of different emotional landscapes, as Burek would call it. Like, this is really an unlimited category, actually. And for me, Gothic is an unlimited category, and Basic is a very good category, but I don't think you need very many. Because they're just, these are the ones that, like, you might even be using the most. If you yourself create categories for yourself and you have a basic category, those might be the decks that you're using the most, because they are the most well-rounded. They're the easiest to, the most easily accessible. My God, are we in Mercury retrograde? What's happening? And then, you know, flora, fauna, and goddess, like, those are just, yeah. I probably could stop buying flora and fauna decks at this point. I probably could, but I wouldn't be entirely pissed at having a few more. A lot of these are pretty bird-centric too, because I've got urban crow, feathered omens, plus there are birds in almost all of my, if not all. Yeah, I think all of my animal decks have birds in them. So, I got plenty of birds. I think I could be good on flora and fauna, but yeah. And Gothic, like, I could have a few more Gothic decks. I only have 10. Only. So anyway, this was just a really fun little, you know, categorization to apply to my tarot and oracle deck collection. So if you enjoy this idea, of course you would be creating your own categories. You wouldn't necessarily have the same categories as me. So, you know, have fun with it if you want, and comment below what category. I shouldn't be talking today, maybe, but I am, because this is my day that I can record. So, anyway, what categories? I'm cracking up, guys. What categories do you have with your tarot and oracle collection? Answer below, make your own video, whatever you want to do. Okay. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.